When you look at trading, what really separates the people who succeed long term from everyone else? I can tell you it's not some secret, and it's definitely not just a lucky gut feeling. Today, we're going to talk about making a huge shift, moving away from that risky, emotional intuition and into a disciplined system where data, facts, and rules are your guide. Let's get into it. So let's start with a big question. Is trading an art or is it a science? I mean, is it about having this incredible, almost mystical feel for the market's next move? Or is it something that can be tested, measured, and applied systematically, like any other science? And believe me, how you answer that question, well, it changes absolutely everything about your approach. Because really, your answer to that question puts you into one of two completely different worlds. On one side, you've got the artists, the ones who trade on feel and intuition. And on the other, you have the scientists who put their trust in systems and data. Let's take a closer look at these two opposing philosophies. Okay, so here's the fundamental split. On the left, you have discretionary trading. This is the art of it. It's all about having a feel for the market. It's subjective, it's personal, and it's totally vulnerable to your emotions. But on the right, you have data-driven trading, the science. This is all about removing that emotion, that subjectivity. It's about building a system based on hard evidence, statistical models, and crystal clear rules. So why is just relying on your gut so dangerous in the markets? Well, it's because our brains, for all the amazing things they can do, have some serious glitches, some programming bugs, you could say, especially when we're trying to make financial decisions under pressure. And this isn't just a theory. There's an entire field of study called behavioral finance that's dedicated to this exact problem. It digs into the psychology of why we so often make these financial choices that when we look back, make absolutely zero sense. It proves that the line between being rational and being emotional with our money is, well, it's incredibly thin. And a perfect example of this is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Oh man, we've all felt this, right? You see a stock just blasting off and this panic sets in. You feel like you have to jump in right now or you'll miss all the profit. That emotional reflex is a classic trap, and it's pretty much a guaranteed way to buy at the top. When you boil it all down, it really comes back to two things: greed and fear. These are the two biggest account killers out there, bar none. Greed convinces you to hold on to a winning trade way too long, hoping for more. And then fear makes you panic and sell right at the bottom. They are the twin enemies of rational, clear-headed decision-making. But here's the good news. What if we could just take those emotions out of the picture entirely? What if you could sideline them? Well, that's exactly where the data-driven revolution comes in. It's a total mindset shift from reacting emotionally to executing systematically. And I think this quote from Carly Fiorina just nails the philosophy. The goal is to turn data into information, and information into insight. See, we're not just staring at charts hoping for a sign. We're taking raw data, organizing it into useful information, and then using that information to find a real statistical insight, a genuine edge in the market. The framework for all of this is called systematic trading. The best way to think about it is like creating your own personal rulebook for the market, or maybe like a pilot's checklist. Every single decision, when to get in, when to get out, exactly how much to risk, it's all defined before you even think about placing a trade. This is what stops that emotional in-the-moment meddling. And the engine that powers this entire system, that's quantitative analysis. So instead of saying, I feel like the market is going up today, you're saying, my model shows a 68% statistical probability of a positive move based on these three specific conditions. You see the difference? It's the difference between guessing and actually calculating. So you have a set of rules, an idea. How do you know if it actually works without losing all your money? This step is absolutely crucial: backtesting. It's like having a time machine for your strategy. You run your system against years and years of historical market data, and this tells you not what should have worked in theory, but what actually would have happened in reality. It's literally the scientific method, but for trading. All right, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually go about building one of these systems for yourself? Let's break it down into a really practical step-by-step process. It really boils down to these 4 key steps. First, you formulate a hypothesis. That's just a fancy way of saying you have a clear, testable idea, like when X happens, Y tends to follow. Step 2, you take that idea and you rigorously backtest it. You use all that historical data to see if it has a real statistical edge. Step 3, and listen, this one is non-negotiable. You define your risk management rules. And finally, step 4, You execute your plan with machine-like discipline, every single time. And let me be absolutely crystal clear about something. Risk management isn't just part of your system, it is the entire foundation it's built on. Your number one job as a trader isn't to make a ton of money. Your number one job is to protect the capital you have. Because without capital, you're out of the game. Period. So, how do you do it? Well, one of the most powerful and simple techniques is the fixed percentage rule. You just decide right now that you will never risk more than a small slice of your account, say 1 or 2% on any single trade idea. This one simple rule is like a seatbelt. It automatically protects you from those catastrophic account-blowing losses. It is the key to long-term survival. And here's where the math gets really cool. This is the power of risk to reward. If you only take trades where your potential profit is at least 2 or 3 times bigger than what you're risking, you don't even have to be right all the time to make money. You can actually be wrong more often than you're right and still be profitable over the long run. That is the incredible power of a positive risk-reward ratio. So after all this work, the testing, the rulemaking, the discipline, what's the big payoff? Why go through all this trouble instead of just winging it with your intuition? Well, the advantages they're profound. The benefits are just huge. I mean, first off, you reduce so much stress and decision fatigue. Your performance becomes something you can actually measure, so you know exactly what's working and what's not. You learn from your mistakes objectively without beating yourself up. And most importantly, you shut down those destructive emotional biases, and you build real psychological resilience. You're no longer a gambler, you're the operator of a trading business. And that really brings us to the final and most important question. I want you to look at your own trading, your own approach to the markets, and just ask yourself honestly, are you building a system or are you just guessing? Because the answer to that question, it could change everything for you.